Good morning, freedom fighters. It is 8 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, October 22nd, 2024. I want to talk about the powerful microwave energies that was used to create a storm over Nebraska and Kansas last night. Undeniable microwave energies being used in the storm that's going off to the east that created massive flooding in New Mexico the past few days. Relentless rains they can create with these devices. Very important film I want to show you that goes back to over 100 years ago. Charles Hatfield, if you look up his occupation today, even Google will state he is a rainmaker. There used to be companies that created rain back in the 1800s. The government shut them down because they were going to control the weather from then on. Undeniable, these devices are spaced to control the weather, not foreseeing the rain. Undeniable that these radar systems are shooting energies into these storms to create havoc. Stand by. We need these devices shut down, full width of the beam creating this storm. Undeniable, these beams are working the weather. Multiple beams. And there's all this activities happening that you cannot see. Look how many beams, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, coming out of this device. None of these devices are necessary for seeing the rain. They are overlapping to control the weather. And I want to show you some of the first evidence of rainmaking done in the United States from the 1900s. All of our information has been manipulated by our rulers. Undeniable that these devices are creating rain. These are the devices you're seeing activated. This should be properly named Storm Creation Center. Their laboratory is our atmosphere. These people need to be shut down. We don't need to know the weather, especially when they're actually the ones creating the climate change that we see today. I no longer recognize the planet I live on. I do not recognize the weather. And I am a commercial fisherman that studied the weather his entire life. These microwave energies are creating weather. Let me show you the patents. Undeniable what I say. Stand by. These are the patents. They say abandoned, but they don't mind lying to the people. Hurricane tornado control devices. U.S. patents. You can look these up and read all about it. It goes in full detail of what it is. And that is a lot more patents. This is absolutely another different patent. Full detail. Every one of these say abandoned, but they're not. Look how many different patents on weather modification. Hurricane control device. Mad scientists. These devices are not foreseeing the rain. These devices do not need to be 25, 30 miles apart, 50 miles apart, 75 miles apart to see the rain. We have a brand new one at the mouth of my river. It's 35 miles from the other one. They are not here to see the rain. These devices were put here to control our weather and has been for a very long time. They used to call this daytime heating. This is happening in the middle of the night. They call it birds and bugs and everything, but what it really is, they're electrifying our atmosphere, ionosphere, stratosphere. These are atmospheric heaters that can push and create havoc on the people. Stand by for more. Very unusual energy coming out of Montana, I think. I don't remember what state I'm looking at here. But watch after these pulses. Look at that. Look at that wave come off of that. It looks like a microburst from the storm, or is it from the machine working? You can see the rain go through the radar. But watch these microbursts. You can see the wave already going through, but it really intensified after those bursts right there. Very unusual to me. Very unusual ripple microwaves, microbursts of some sort. Controlling the weather, that's all it is. Stand by. 1916, Charles Hatfield was paid to create rain, and he did. It's called the Hatfield's Flood. Please watch this. I try to go to Sarah Mask, but this video has been removed, and it makes me really wonder why. They don't want you to know the truth, but there used to be companies that did create the rain. It was not fake companies. They were real. Interstate Rainmakers was not no joke. You cannot be hired to make rain and not happen. You wouldn't be hired again. You know what I mean? Charles Hatfield was also one of the Rainmakers. Very important video here. Stand by.
Did you know that the city of San Diego hired a rainmaker in 1915, and it actually worked? In fact, it worked a little too well. Hello, my name is Sarah, and welcome back to my channel, and let me tell you the story of this urban legend that is actually true. I came across this while looking into the reported hauntings of the Las Americas premium outlets in San Diego for a TikTok post. There's a link to my TikTok in the description. They say the outlets are haunted because of the 80 people who died at the site in 1916. So I was looking into that event and found this Rainmaker at the bottom of the online research rabbit hole. It was interesting, so I thought I would make a video sharing the story. This rainmaker, named Charles Hatfield, was born in Kansas and came to San Diego as a child in the late 1800s. At that time, several scientists were trying to create rain by exploding hydrogen balloons into clouds. After the Civil War, Edward Powers, a general from the war, noticed that rain often followed battles. He even published a book about it and argued that the noise from the explosions of weapons agitated the moisture in the air, eventually leading to rain. And he wasn't alone in this belief. Even the ancient Greek writer Plutarch noticed that battles might create rain, and Napoleon tried to create rain with explosives as well. But Powers' book introduced the idea to a new generation of Americans struggling with drought, and although most scientists did not take it seriously, some government officials did. An Illinois senator proposed a bill to fund rainmaking research, and although it was shot down by the House, the Senate ended up getting it passed. And so $17,000, that's over $500,000 today, subsidized several inventors around the country in their efforts to create rain. Most of the experiments took place in the central states. Kansas saw a few notable rainmakers, such as Melbourne, the rain wizard. Melbourne's tactic was to create a gas on the ground that would then rise and agitate the air that way. He was once hired by a town in Kansas for $500, which is over $5,000 today, to end their drought. For days he tried, but no luck. The town eventually gave up on him and refused to pay him the money. However, a strong wind had been blowing his rain-making gases to Goodland, the next town over, and they did actually receive rain. They became avid supporters of Melbourne and his abilities. In Grand Island, Nebraska, he again claimed to have created rain, and again, just not at the intended location. According to Melbourne, he never shared his secret, but others claimed to know it. An entire group of people in Kansas formed a company around the idea, calling themselves the Interstate Artificial Rain Company. The government also ran tests in Texas. They too apparently created rain, but it was also displaced to a neighboring location by the wind. Nothing more than a light sprinkle came from some experiments, and in others, the rain had already been forecast. Parts of California also experienced drought conditions. Farmers were hiring water witches, and the Rain on Request company was offering its rainmaking services by ionizing the air. But in all of these places, whether Kansas, Texas, or California, all of these water production services were little more than cons, coincidental and unreliable. Now back to Charles Hatfield. He was originally a sewing machine salesman, but he became interested in rainmaking after hearing about some of these other experiments. He realized that dust storms were often followed by rain too, so he thought maybe shooting particles similar to dust in the air would help rain form. In 1903, at the age of 27, he set up his lab at the top of his father's windmill. The neighbors complained about the weird science he was doing, but his family said that he was just a kid trying to stop the drought and they should just let him be. One day, Hatfield sent a dark cloud of smoke up into the fog hanging over his family's ranch, and it did rain immediately after. He apparently successfully repeated the experiment in 16 out of 17 subsequent attempts at his family's ranch. Hatfield then turned professional and used these methods to create rain for Los Angeles for $50, over $1,500 today. Over the course of the next several years, he fulfilled 17 rainmaking contracts for everyone ranging from cotton farmers in Texas to miners in Alaska. In 1912 alone, he made $13,000 creating rain for various communities. That's worth almost $400,000 today. Now let's skip to the main event in 1915. This was the year of the Panama, California Exposition, an international event that had attracted millions of visitors over the span of the year. It was so successful that they expanded the exposition to last through 1916 as well, and they were expecting the same turnout of millions of people. However, some San Diego leaders were concerned about their water levels. The dams in the city were doing fine, but one of the dams in the countryside, in Morena, just outside the city, was running low, at only a third of its capacity. So they hired Charles Hatfield to make rain. They offered him $10,000, almost $300,000 today, if he could fill the reservoir in the next year. They figured why not let him try? Since they wouldn't pay him unless he did, they had nothing to lose. So December 1915, Hatfield built a 20-foot tower in the woods near the reservoir and set to work. People say that his tower resounded with faint explosions and filled the area with the odor of smelly cheese. And then on January 1st of 1916, New Year's Day, an explosion sent the first puff of smoke up into the atmosphere. A light drizzle followed almost immediately, but not really any rain. At least not until a few days later on January 5th, when it rained just a little at the reservoir. A few days after that, on January 10th, things took a turn. For a full day, it rained off and on in San Diego city limits. But in the countryside, it poured, and almost continually, for over a week. In the mountains, blizzards wreaked havoc. In the lowlands, storm drains flooded and roofs leaked. Some places saw as much as 18 inches of rain. The city of San Diego was thrilled with their own portion of rain, until January 17th brought news of disasters in the countryside. The dry bed of the San Diego River had become flooded with torrents of water. It swept through the countryside, completely washing away homes, barns, ranches, historic missions, bridges, and even entire herds of cattle and other livestock. Several people were killed. South of the city was a community called the Little Landers, who were trying to build their own little utopian society, and the community was entirely washed away by the floods. A few days later, on January 20th, Charles Hatfield called San Diego City Hall. He said that the reservoir in Morena was almost filled to the brim and would be in a couple days, and that he would like his $10,000. Some newspapers at the time were claiming that he didn't actually cause the storm, but he argued that it had never naturally rained this much in the area, and it only continued to rain. The next day on January 21st, the Colorado River started to rise. The day after that, January 22nd, the river's levees broke and flooded the town of Yuma, Arizona, destroying 100 buildings. On January 23rd, the water levels began to rise in the Otay River in Chula Vista to the southeast of the city. On January 24th, the storm stopped, and the sun came out. The people of San Diego thought they might be in the clear. But on January 25th, the rain started again, with a vengeance. On January 26th, one of the reservoirs overflowed all protective barriers and washed away neighborhoods in the northern end of the city down to the concrete foundations. January 27th, the Otay Dam broke and completely flooded its valley. Absolutely nothing was left. No foundations and no survivors and no corpses were found in the floodwaters. They estimate 50 people died in that one flood burst alone. The National Weather Service has declared the 1916 flood the most destructive and deadly weather event San Diego has seen in all its history. The city estimated about $8 million in damages, which is about $200 million today. Locals took to calling it Hatfield's Flood. But despite everything, all of the death and damage and destruction, Hatfield still took credit for the storm. Even though there were rumors that lynch mobs were looking for him in the days following the floods, he went to City Hall in San Diego and asked for his $10,000. The Moreno Reservoir was certainly filled. However, the city refused to pay him. They claimed that they had only made a verbal agreement and that since there was no official contract, they owed Hatfield nothing. Hatfield then sued them, adding that he would be happy with the money as a settlement. The city replied that they would be willing to give him the $10,000, but only if he took legal responsibility for the damages of the flood as well. Hatfield turned down the offer. Of course he did, since responsibility for the $8 million in damages was not worth the $10,000 in payment, and he eventually dropped the issue entirely. There was still the question, however, as to whether or not Hatfield had in fact been responsible for the rainfall. Individuals sued the city over the damages and hardship, claiming that since the city had hired Hatfield, they were thus responsible. But the courts ruled that the storm had been an act of God and Hatfield was just a coincidence. After all, although the rain had come in unprecedented amounts, January was the rainiest part of the year for the area. But while many doubted Hatfield's connection to the storm, many also believed him. He got a lot of job offers, but he did not accept any new jobs for several years until 1922, instead taking some time to further his experiments and figure out what had gone wrong to create the flood and refine his methods. On January 31st, 1922, he tried again to create rain in the Mojave Desert. They say 240 inches of rain fell in just 30 minutes. The desert flooded, Sand Canyon north of LA was flooded, and the LA aqueduct was almost destroyed. After this new disaster, Hatfield declared that he was retiring and would not meddle with natural forces like that again. But again, he was still offered contracts to create rain for many years. He did take up one offer, however, when a banana company based out of New Orleans asked for his services to put out a raging fire on their banana plantations in Honduras. Rain fell and put out the fires 3 days after Hatfield arrived and started his work there. But after that, he completely retired, and he died decades later in 1958. And so that's the story of Charles Hatfield the Rainmaker and of his San Diego flood of 1916. The urban legend of San Diego hiring a rainmaker is true, but the legend that the Rainmaker actually created rain and floods, I'll leave that one up for you to decide if that's true. As I said, I found this story through researching a San Diego haunting for a TikTok post. If you want to hear more about that and other places haunted by the victims of this flood, you can check out my TikTok. It's linked in the description. And I'll be back here on my YouTube with another video about a creepy haunted place soon, so...
Sad I can't find her video now. When I click on it, it just says video unavailable. That's such a great video. She did such a great job. We are witnessing the largest book burning on the planet, and no one even seen it happen. The internet has been removed so many ways. Not the internet that I used to have, you know. Even just looking up the word butterflies, it says millions of things that fit on, but it's not there. You know. Anyhow, hope y'all enjoyed that. I believe it's a key to what is going on, to tell you the truth. Commercial Fisherman standing by. Let me know if y'all finished the video. Thank you to everybody's comments on my fishing videos yesterday. It's very heartfelt. Thank you to every single one of y'all. I hope y'all are listening to my voice at this moment. Commercial Fisherman out.